Tonight, the struggle to contain the coronavirus. Authorities now fear the incubation period is double what it was first thought to be. Good evening, I'm Jeremy Fernandez. This is ABC News. More questions than answers over what caused the fatal XPT derailment. The downside of the downpour, how welcome rain can become an unwelcome problem on the land. And Australia stays positive despite its World Cup loss.
That's the last nail in the coffin for Australia. What a comeback it has been for the Indian team.
The effort to control the global spread of coronavirus has been dealt a blow. There are now revelations the incubation period could be much longer than originally thought. The worrying development came as the Australian government announced it was partly lifting its ban on travellers from China. Meanwhile, more passengers who evacuated the Diamond Princess cruise ship have tested positive to the virus. From Darwin, Kate Ashton reports.
They're on a flight to their home state, but these cruise ship passengers aren't quite heading to their own homes just yet. They're on a charter to hospital to be treated for coronavirus. They were among the 164 Australians who arrived in Darwin 2 days ago, after being evacuated off the Diamond Princess cruise ship docked at Yokohama.
This was both anticipated and forewarned, but it also explains the reason we made the difficult decision to impose a supervised quarantine regime.
6 of the evacuees have now tested positive, 2 each from Queensland and Victoria and 1 each from South Australia and Western Australia. Those still in quarantine are all being closely monitored.
I remain optimistic that people will remain well, but I do expect that we may get some further people requiring isolation.
For the first time, the government is easing up on travel restrictions for some Chinese students.
The Australian government, in collaboration with state and territory governments, will allow on a case-by-case basis Year 11 and Year 12 students from China outside of Hubei province to be able to come to Australia.
Eligible students will have to follow a strict 13-step process, the change prompted by promising expert medical advice.
The good news in the last few weeks from mainland China has been that there have been very, very few exported cases.
In Queensland, long hours are paying off for university researchers attempting to develop a vaccine for COVID-19.
We've actually made the trimeric protein that will form the basis of the vaccine. So this is a key milestone.
The team hopes to move to clinical trials by the middle of the year. Here in Howard Springs, 266 people evacuated from Wuhan a fortnight ago are counting down the hours until their quarantine period is over. All being well, they'll be released tomorrow morning and flown home on commercial flights paid for by the government. But late today, new information out of China that throws into question the length of time people should spend in quarantine. Officials have revealed that a 70-year-old patient didn't show symptoms until 27 days after being exposed, suggesting the incubation period could be much longer than the presumed 14 days. It could complicate efforts to deal with the virus, which has killed more than 2,300 people.
Thank you.
In the meantime, those in quarantine remain hopeful and appreciative.
You are the best. Thank you, Ozmat, for helping us here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For keeping them safe and healthy during their 14 days in isolation. Kate Ashton, ABC News, Darwin.
The deaths of Hannah Clark and her children are still weighing heavily on many Australians' minds. And more cases of domestic violence are being recorded each day. Last night, a 49-year-old woman was fatally stabbed in Townsville. Another woman is recovering in hospital after being strangled. Advocates say more needs to be done to stem the tide, and calls are growing for extra funding.
Another life stolen in an apparent act of domestic violence. Police tape sealed off the Townsville unit block where a 49-year-old woman was stabbed to death in the early hours. Her accused killer is a 40-year-old man and is now behind bars.
It was a shock because normally the streets are really quiet.
Meanwhile, at Bouval, west of Brisbane, a 28-year-old woman was taken to hospital and a man charged with strangling and beating her. A horrific week for a state reeling from the deaths of Hannah Clark and her 3 children.
It saddens me and it devastates me that we are losing lives of women and children, and we don't seem to be moving forward.
For Vanessa Fowler, every new incident reminds her of her sister Alison Baden-Clay, murdered by her husband in 2012.
The scourge of domestic violence has certainly been highlighted, and we have come a long way, but I really think, obviously, as the past week has shown us, we still have a long way to go.
She says educating people about potential red flags is critical, along with extra resources, a sentiment shared.
We've got to throw everything we've got at this horrific human rights issue in our society.
In many ways, know what we really do have to do.
The Queensland Government has injected more than $300 million to tackle domestic and family violence. Despite that, deaths continue to occur and calls are growing for even more funding. The ABC asked the Premier for a response today, but she declined.
Hannah Clark's family says after leaping out of the car while still on fire, she managed to give a detailed report to first responders.
She fought to make sure he survived. He got punished doing that to her babies. She was so brave.
A source told the ABC that Rowan Baxter rejected a very good offer of shared custody of their children before he took their lives. A memorial for Hannah and her children will be held tomorrow afternoon at Camp Hill. Kate McKenna, ABC News, Brisbane.
A preliminary investigation into the fatal train derailment in regional Victoria is close to being finished. 2 people died when the XPT train from Sydney to Melbourne crashed near Wallen. Questions are being asked about the safety of the track and the speed of the train.
Cleaning up a terrible mess. Dozens of workers remain on site near Wallen after the fatal accident. Some are building a road so the carriages can be taken away and the line eventually reopened. The train, carrying 153 passengers, crashed en route from Sydney to Melbourne on Thursday night. The driver, 54-year-old John Kennedy from Canberra, and the pilot, a 49-year-old from Castlemaine, died. The crash has highlighted deficiencies in the main line linking Australia's 2 largest cities. The union says there have been serious concerns for years. Some say the line has been in trouble since it was built in the 1950s.
Wasn't done particularly well at the time. More recently, about 10 years ago, they replaced the timber sleepers with concrete sleepers, and the problems got substantially worse at that time.
In my opinion, the splitting up of the railways hasn't been a good thing.
But upgrading hundreds of kilometres of rail line doesn't come cheap.
There is a current program, $250 million. It's not the first program of its sort. The only long-term solution is where you have these depressions, these mud holes, you've actually got to take the track away.
As the clean-up continues, investigators are still trying to piece together what went wrong, with a focus on the state of the line, signalling issues, and whether the train was travelling above the speed limit on this section of track.
Trains are equipped with a logger, which is similar to a black box on an aeroplane, and everything that happens is recorded. So the only way we're going to know what speed the train was doing on derailment was to read the speed chart.
The stricken train is expected to be removed tomorrow. Zalika Rismal, ABC News, Wallen.
Police are searching for a driver after a man was killed in a suspected hit and run on Sydney's northern beaches. A passerby found him at Freshwater this morning with serious injuries and barely breathing. He was taken to Royal North Shore Hospital where he died.
We think it was possibly a hit and run, but given it was dark and it was raining at the time and the man was wearing dark clothing, there's a good chance if it was a hit and run, the driver was unaware that they were involved in a collision.
Police have urged anyone who may have witnessed a crash in the area to come forward. Local businesses are becoming more and more worried they may be excluded from lucrative work on another massive naval project. Just days after a French company was told to maximise its use of Australian suppliers on the future submarine fleet, the ABC can reveal similar concerns are being raised about the $35 billion naval frigate program. Here's Defence correspondent Andrew Green.
The marketing is slick, bold, and promises a dinky-die product.
With Australian steel and Australian hands to deliver a defence program the likes of which the nation has never seen before.
In 2018, British-owned BAE Systems was chosen for a $35 billion project to design and construct 9 new Hunter-class warships in Adelaide for the Royal Australian Navy. 18 months on, there are growing concerns among local defence suppliers that much of the work will end up overseas.
It's clear that we are not getting the appropriate amount of local industry content for the future frigate program.
The ABC's revealed the concerns are shared at the top of the Defence Department. It's dispatched its boss of national naval shipbuilding to the United Kingdom to remind the British of their Australian industry content obligations. In a statement, Defence insists the UK government and BAE Systems are committed to honouring the terms of the contract. Construction on Australia's newest warships is on track to begin this year, so there's urgency within defence and industry to make sure local contractors get a majority of the work. But like the massive future submarine program, there's no specific target on what percentage of the project must be Australian content. However, BAE Systems says it's confident overall Australian industry content will be well above 60% once the Hunter-class program is finished. Andrew Green, ABC News, Sydney.
An estimated 5,000 people have marched through central Sydney demanding government action on what they've declared a climate crisis. Organisers accused the Morrison government of refusing to accept the realities of climate change despite the savage fire season. Among their demands, a publicly owned renewable energy system and no new fossil fuel projects.
We're terrified for our children's future and we feel that the government are really failing us.
At the time I'm hoping for something to change when I speak for my brain. Climate.
They also want a greater role for Aboriginal land management practices to help better protect and repair ecosystems.
This rally is calling for control of lands and waters to be restored to Indigenous people, and we want to see a huge rollout of Indigenous jobs on country.
The protest in Sydney was one of a number held as part of a national day of action. Sex, politics and religion are traditionally avoided as dinner table conversation, but in some drought-affected areas there's another topic to avoid. That's rain. Those who've had it don't want to rub it into those who've missed out. Mental health advocates say rain-related guilt is adding to the stress felt by graziers.
After years of drought, recent rains are heaven sent for many across outback Queensland. But not everybody's been blessed, and no one wants to celebrate when their neighbour missed out.
People will experience some joy, their spirits are lifted, there is that glimmer of hope that's brought back into people's lives, but that is coupled with the guilt.
You become very mindful of what you say and what you do as far as if you get rain and others haven't received rain.
Longreach grazier Jenny Gordon has experienced rain guilt firsthand. It led to the creation of the Facebook group Who Got the Rain.
I was talking about it to a friend the next day and she said, there should be somewhere people can go and celebrate their rain. So she went away and talked to her daughter and her daughter helped to set up, using Facebook, a page called Who Got the Rain.
Joss Middleton is a senior mental health expert with the Royal Flying Doctors. She says picking up the phone isn't always easy, but connection is very important.
We can all empathise, especially one grazier to another, because they've all done it tough. So to actually pick up the phone and say, I don't know what to say, but I'm thinking of you, goes a really long way.
In an effort to get people talking, Queensland Health is holding mental health workshops across the West, using leather making to punch through.
Few farmers in these parts would be surprised to learn that their outlook is influenced by the weather.
But finding ways to reach out to others in these small communities is vital.
It's good to be able to rely on our natural supports, and those natural supports are people like friends and family and colleagues as well.
Craig Fitzsimmons, ABC News, Western Queensland.
At least 7 Indonesian children have been killed in flash floods which swept away hundreds of students on a riverside trekking excursion. When rescue teams arrived at the scene, around 100 children were unaccounted for. After a frantic nighttime search near the river, most of them were found. 7 children, though, are confirmed dead. Another 3 are still missing. The region in Yogyakarta province is a popular location for outdoor adventure tours and school excursions. The coronavirus is continuing to have a knock-on effect around the world. Thailand is rolling out a marketing campaign to help its tourism industry offset the dramatic fall in visitor numbers. The country is a popular destination for Australian tourists, and it depends a lot on visitors from China. Southeast Asia correspondent Amy Bainbridge reports from Bangkok.
Tourists would normally be streaming through the gates of Bangkok's Grand Palace at this time of year. Instead, it's unusually quiet.
10 days ago, we wouldn't have been able to stand here because it would have been packed with Chinese tourists.
While the big boat operators are feeling it, so too are small vendors, still trying to make a living from the dwindling tourist trade, like Muan Sittada, who's been selling flowers to tourists for 20 years.
Oh, it's such a big difference. We've gone from having a lot of customers to nobody.
There's been a huge drop in tourist numbers, and it's all because of the virus. It's worse than bird flu and SARS. Nobody's coming here now.
Thailand's tourism ministry says the falling number of Chinese travellers will have a significant economic impact and is predicting losses worth as much as $1.5 billion. But the government and businesses have a plan to target tourists who are no longer going to China.
One of the first things we can do is try to attract the 60 million people who would have travelled to China to come to Thailand instead.
Not everyone is staying away. One of Bangkok's top destinations, Khao San Road, remains popular with Australians.
I think I'm pretty safe. As far as I know, it's not bad over here, and yeah, hopefully I'll be back home before it takes off too bad.
We're being careful, being cautious, washing our hands.
I'm seeing a lot of places are empty, like tourist destinations. There's definitely a lot of easy places to take photos, let's say. There's not a lot of people in your way.
With no sign of the coronavirus going away anytime soon, it could be a quiet few months ahead for tourism in Thailand. Amy Bainbridge, ABC News, Bangkok.
American intelligence agencies are warning that Russia is again trying to influence the US presidential election, by this time supporting both the Trump campaign and that of Bernie Sanders, who's the Democratic frontrunner. The two men responded very differently to the reports. Mr. Sanders warned Vladimir Putin to stop meddling. Donald Trump dismissed the idea that Russia is trying to help him.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's disinformation. That's the only thing they're good at. They're not good at anything else. They get nothing done. Do nothing, Democrats.
And when I say to Mr. Putin, if elected president, trust me, you are not going to be interfering in American elections.
Russia has denied meddling in this year's campaign. The jury in the rape and sexual assault trial of Harvey Weinstein has told the judge it's deadlocked on 2 of the most serious charges against the Hollywood producer. Jurors have indicated they've reached a unanimous decision on 3 charges, but they've asked the judge if they could conclude with a hung jury being declared on the other 2 charges. The judge has instructed the 7 men and 5 women to reconvene next week and keep trying to reach a unanimous verdict on all the charges. The state's mid-north coast is normally an area of high rainfall where farmers take full advantage of fertile soils. While the weather has been true to form recently, the region has been in a prolonged drought. Farmers had hoped to access a dam with a capacity of 200 megalitres, but they say regulators have been standing in the way.
Recent rain has eased the immediate anxiety of blueberry growers around Coffs Harbour, but they're still worried about long-term water security.
At the moment, with the rainfall we've had, it's great.
We don't know what's going to happen down the track, 3 months down the track, 4 months down the track.
Growers have been particularly frustrated that a defunct town water supply couldn't be accessed as short-term relief. Woolgoolga Dam wasn't licensed for agricultural use, so the local council couldn't sell its water to landowners as planned.
We never actually got our hands on the water at the time we needed it.
While council manages the dam, state water authorities have to approve any changes in how the water is used. In January, a new licence was issued that could allow for agricultural use.
The process we're going through at the moment with an attempted change in use of the water in Woolgoolga Dam is probably testing the regulators, because it's not a common thing.
Growing giant Costa Group is pushing for access, but small-scale farmers are also interested.
In the long term, I don't know what the future is of that dam, but if it's there, I'd still like to be able to gain access to use the water.
But others fear using the water too quickly could cause environmental problems.
There's a certain level of toxic build-up in the sediment due to the previous banana farming, and we really don't know what the impacts of that are going to be.
Even though the dam's licence has been changed, the rules for how this water will be able to be used still have to be negotiated. In the long term, the council wants to expand a recycled water plant and pump reclaimed water to growing areas. Claudia Jambor, ABC News, Woolgoolga.
The Duke and Duchess of Sussex have agreed to stop using the term royal in their branding by June of this year. A spokesperson for the couple says that due to government rules around the use of the word royal, it's been agreed they'll withdraw a UK trademark application for the term Sussex Royal, their non-profit organisation. It follows the couple's bombshell announcement last month to step back from their duties in the royal family. In sport, the women's cricket team has arrived in Perth ahead of a must-win World T20 match against Sri Lanka on Monday. The hosts went down by 17 runs in the tournament opener against India last night.
Beaten, but not out. The tournament favourites touched down in Perth today after failing to fire in the highly anticipated tournament opener.
We didn't get the result that we wanted, but that just, I guess, shows that how much we care.
The tourist star leg spinner spoilt the party.
Up and over out of the hand, dozer in the air.
Poonam Yadav finished with 4 for 19, restricting Australia's run chase to 115 runs.
We probably didn't chase as smart as what we have in the past. I think full credit to Poonam Yadav. I thought she bowled quite cleverly tonight.
She's someone who always lead bowling track on the front, and she did very well. I'm really happy because she was going through some injuries, and she did a great comeback for the team.
Elisa Healy was the standout for Australia.
No shot.
The opener helped her side get off to a flyer, turning around a recent poor run of form.
Oh, that is another gift.
Healy finished with 51 off 35 deliveries.
We knew, the way she plays, that eventually it'd click for her, and she got us off to a really good start. Unfortunately, not enough other batters were able to help her out.
Catches also went begging.
Gone, dropped it, in fact.
Cricket's a very up and down game. There's highs and lows all the time, so I think you get used to it as a cricketer, and the group's in a really good spot today, and just really excited to get to training tomorrow and then get stuck into it on Monday.
Australia must now regroup for its next match against Sri Lanka. Patrick Galloway, ABC News.
A hat-trick by Ashton Agar has helped the Australian men's cricket team post a record T20 win against South Africa. The left-arm spinner ended up taking 5 for 24 in the series opener in Johannesburg. The Proteas were dismissed for 89. That's 108 runs short of the victory target.
Got him! That's him! Gone! Ashton Agar with a hat-trick for Australia. It's the 12th in T20 cricket. It's the second for Australia after Brett Lee. Magnificent. It's a top catch too.
Earlier, Steve Smith top scored with 45 runs as his side reached 6 for 196. Australia now hasn't been beaten in its last 9 T20 matches. The women's Indigenous All-Stars have defeated the Maori All-Stars 10-4. The Indigenous All-Stars were out to avenge last year's loss, but the Maori Ferns were quick to open the scoring. Steph Muka levelled before half-time. The steady hands of captain Talisha Harden then put the hosts ahead late in the match.
Great catch, though, by Delisha Harden. Davis Welsh ends up with it. She'll score and puts the Indigenous All-Stars back in front.
Nakia Davis-Welsh was named Player of the Match. In the A-League, Western Sydney is closing in on the top six after thrashing Adelaide United 5-2. The score was 2-2 after 25 minutes. The Wanderers' captain Mitchell Duke scored a double, and that helped Western Sydney finish with 4 first-half goals for the first time since the club's inception in 2012.
The run by Duke. Colonizo came out, and Mitch Duke has a brace, and the Wanderers lead 4-2. A crazy first half.
Simon Cox added the Wanderers' 5th goal after the break to extend the hosts' unbeaten run to 3 games. School formals are a rite of passage for most teenagers, but those from gender and sexually diverse backgrounds often feel left out. In recent years, the rise of queer formals, where LGBTIQ teens can celebrate together, are helping them feel fully included. This report from ABC Radio Sydney's Matt Bamford.
A bold suit for a big night out. Harris Wardell and his partner Matt have been looking forward to this night for months.
You look incredible.
The 17-year-old Sydney-sider is preparing for the Queer Formal, an underage event bringing gender and sexually diverse teens together.
It really helps you discover who you are and, you know, discover other people like you, and you're not alone with what you're feeling. It really boosts my happiness. I feel more myself than I ever really have before.
It's a far cry from some of his other high school experiences.
As someone who was a trans male in a school that was single-sexed, I didn't really fit in.
Tonight's event will be the first formal of any kind for SJ Sparks. Until now, the 16-year-old has relied mostly on the internet for social support.
It's been a little hard to find people around my age who are in the LGBT community. I do wish that there were more chances for me to go out to see real people about this.
And while there's a little shyness at the start, it's almost impossible to feel alone in this crowd.
Describe what sort of time you're having right now.
Well, the best time. It's so fun.
What do you love about it?
The accepting environment, everybody's just being themselves.
It's the response organisers are aiming for.
They leave with friends, they leave smiling, and they leave really confident, and it's just the absolute best thing to see.
Queer formals are continuing to grow in popularity across the country, but many of the young people here say that's not good enough. They want more events that celebrate their diversity in a supportive and safe environment. Matt Bamford, ABC News, Sydney.
Let's take a look at the weather now. Cloud is blanketing much of the New South Wales coast, leading to a warm night and cool day in Sydney. Temperatures in the metro area were confined to the low 20s. That's 3 to 7 degrees cooler than the February average maximum. It reached 24 in the city. Overnight lows were in the high teens. We saw generally cooler conditions overnight in most of the state, except for the northeast. There were some isolated showers north of Sydney and in the northern and central inland. It's been dry, cool and mostly sunny elsewhere in the state. A monsoon trough over the northeastern tropics is causing rain and storms reaching down through Queensland into northern New South Wales. Meanwhile, on the New South Wales coast, onshore winds are continuing to cause a few showers and thunderstorms. These showers will increase with the onshore wind flow tomorrow before clearing again as another high pressure system approaches from the west. Showers are expected in Brisbane and possibly Darwin and Perth tomorrow. It'll be partly cloudy in Melbourne and Canberra, and it'll be fine and sunny in Hobart and Adelaide. As those showers in Queensland will continue tomorrow, they'll reach further into New South Wales as well. Those showers will stretch from the northern coast to the northern and central inland tomorrow, and that'll lead to generally cooler conditions in that region. On the water, winds will become southeasterly but remain light. It'll be partly cloudy in the southeast. There may be some isolated showers in the Illawarra, but sunny at times on the south coast. Winds will be north to northeasterly and light to moderate, seas rising up to 2 metres. For the rest of New South Wales, it'll be dry and partly cloudy. It'll be cooler than average in the north and warmer in the south. Winds in Sydney will stay light and onshore tomorrow. Seas will rise to around a metre on a southerly swell. It'll be partly cloudy in the metro area with very little shower activity expected, under 1 millimetre, down to 20 degrees overnight before a top of 25. The skies clear on Tuesday before the potential return of some brief showers and storms midweek. And we'll see the skies clear again by next weekend. That's the latest from ABC News. Enjoy the rest of your evening.